There we go.
Hey, okay. Round two. Thank you for bearing with the second round of technical difficulties. And thanks all for coming out today. There's quite a bunch of you here, so it's really cool to see a lot of people who are really keen to get some internships. My name's Harvey, and this is Lizzy, and we were really fortunate to be the 2018 and 2019 Bruce Mclaren Scholarship winners. Normally, they only have one student a year go over to Mclaren, but because Lizzy's scholarship was delayed by a year, we both got to go over together, which was really cool. So today, we'll give you a little bit of a background of what Mclaren is, what the internship was that we did, and some of the cool things that we got to do, as well as a little bit more of an insight into the rotation that we did when we were actually working in the company, a little bit about the extra travel that we got to do, and our key takeaways from the internship. So firstly, a little bit about me. I'm a third-year mechatronics engineering student. I've spent 3 years on the Formula SAE team, working on the suspension and driveline subgroups. And this year and next year as well, I'll be the chief engineer. I'm really passionate about engineering and leadership, both within the university and the Formula SAE context, and also within the community.
Hi everyone, my name's Lizzy. I'm currently in my 5th year of Mechanical Engineering and Science conjoint, majoring in physics. So I'm really passionate about cars. I kind of developed this passion towards the end of high school, which sort of led me to join the Formula SAE team in my first year at university. So I was part of that team from 2016 to 2019, and I've sort of taken this year to try and graduate eventually. So I was the team leader in 2018. However, I've also worked in the sort of chassis, which is the composite side of it, business area, and some electrical areas. So a little bit about Mclaren. I have a short video to try and introduce you to them if you don't know them. But they're a big group and they have 3 companies. So we've got Mclaren Automotive, which is the company Harvey and I worked for. They do all your supercars. You have Mclaren Racing, which more of you might be familiar with, and this is the F1 and where the heritage really is. You also have Mclaren Applied, which does a lot of emerging technologies. So they're located in Woking, which is about half an hour by train out of London, and currently employ about 3,000 to 4,000 people. So the automotive sector started in 2010. They did the P1 back in sort of about the 90s, I believe it was, but that was with the racing company. So the Bruce Mclaren Scholarship is a scholarship that allows us for 8 to 10 weeks to go over to Mclaren and work there. So it's $15,000 and it covers all your expenses, your travel, and everything along those lines. So it was designed to acknowledge the heritage of Bruce Mclaren. So for those of you who don't know him, he was a New Zealand race car designer, driver, engineer, and inventor. He really made an impact in the F1 world. He was born in 1937, but unfortunately passed away in 1970 due to a crash while testing. So he studied at Seton University, which then became Auckland University, and is what the scholarship is for.
So what did we actually do while we were there? Well, obviously we're under NDA, so we can't tell you exactly what we did, but we'll give you a little bit of a general overview. So we both started off in advanced engineering, which is sort of their R&D, research and development type sector. And from there, we rotated around various engineering-based sectors in the company. And this was really cool because we got quite a broad overview of how engineering and business relate and work together. But we also got to do quite a few projects that were a little bit more specific and gave us like a little bit of technical knowledge in and amongst that rotation, which we'll cover later. So after advanced engineering, we moved on to the concept team, which was really cool. That's all about generating the initial idea for the vehicle and where everything's sort of going to be placed and what the stats of the car are going to be. And then we moved into the body and white team. And the name isn't super self-explanatory, but what it is it's sort of the frame and the chassis of the car. So there was a lot of structural analysis and composites involved in that area. We also got to spend some time in the computer-aided engineering team. As you go further through your studies, especially if you're doing mechanical engineering, you'll get to do some simulation on software programs like HyperWorks. And that was really cool for learning how to do crash testing, especially for me as a mechatronics student, because we don't actually get to learn FEA at university. So as some of the others said, you'll learn a lot of skills on the job, but that's part of the fun. And then we got to spend some time in the powertrain team, which was really cool because calling myself a car nut, but not really knowing anything about an engine was a little bit embarrassing. So it was really cool to see how an engine went together from start to finish on their production line. So Idiata is a place that McLaren does a lot of their testing, and it's actually just about 2 hours out of Barcelona in Spain. So they flew us over from the UK over to Barcelona, and we got to get driven around in a few top-notch McLaren cars, which was really, really awesome. And we'll point some of those out a little bit later. And then once we came back, we went into the series development team, which was everything from taking your car that's been manufactured and pushing it through the production line right off the end until it goes into the after sales team. And the after sales was all about doing technical support and running some customer programs that they had at the end. And the PMO that's up there actually stands for Project Management Office. And that's sort of all of the project management resources that project managers at McLaren got to draw on to push the vehicles from start to finish. So it was a really, really well-rounded internship, and we were really lucky to see all of those areas. So as I mentioned, we also got to do a little bit more technical work. And I think as some of the previous speakers mentioned, this was a little bit more similar to some of the stuff that you do at university. So we did a little bit of electronics design and soldering, especially related to Arduino stuff, as well as you'll see some results from a crash simulation that I was running on HyperWorks, a little bit of FEA optimization on suspension arm, and a little bit of CAD as well on CATIA. CATIA is kind of like the big boy CAD that a lot of companies use, but mainly companies like Boeing, huge companies. But the skills and everything that you learn from doing Inventor, I think everyone's learning now, or Creo if you learned that one, are all the same. So your CAD knowledge will be applicable to whatever company you go to. The buttons will just be in a different place.
So obviously from this internship, we had so many highlights, but I picked out two for you today. First was one of them in advanced engineering. So they've got this massive simulator that they use to test sort of different alterations to the car. They're able to code it into the simulator. So you can see a picture of it there. You've got a car sort of body around it and then a big screen in front of you. So you're able to go around a racetrack. So both Harvey and I got to have a go in that, and that was a huge amount of fun.
I was actually so good at that I managed to make the car take off and fly, and I don't think anyone's ever flown a car before. So thank you very much.
And as Harvey mentioned earlier, we also got to go to Idiata, which is about 2 hours out of Barcelona. So we got to go in a few cool cars there. The first one we got to go into was the Senna, which is the yellow one up the top there. The Senna is the ultimate racing machine, and we got to go on the handling track with a professional driver, which was incredible because they're just like, oh yeah, we'll start off going slow, and their slow is not my slow. So that was amazing. We also got to go to GT, which is the bronze one. Up there, this is sort of, well, obviously the McLaren's take on a GT. It was really cool seeing how they're two very different cars, but they're so inherently McLaren at the same time. Lastly, we also got to go in the newly released Speedtail, which is like a $2 million car or something. This car is insane. It feels kind of like a rocket ship to be in. It's got 3 seats, and it's got a top speed of about 400 kilometers an hour. When you put your foot down, it just goes. So as you can see from the design, they really designed it to make for like their pure aerodynamics. It's got no wing mirrors either. Yeah, so that was certainly a once in a lifetime experience.
So obviously because we were over in the UK, we were on the other side of the world. So we decided to make the most of the opportunity and do quite a bit of travel as well. And it was really nice because there was a little bit of money left in that $15,000 that it actually covered our travel, which was super cool. So over the Christmas and New Year's period, we took the train over to Paris and spent Christmas in Paris. And then we caught a train up to Ghent in Belgium, which is where that lovely castle there is from. They told us all about the old torture techniques that they used to use, which was fantastic. And then we spent New Year's in Cologne in Germany, which was super cool. So in Cologne, New Year's is a little bit bigger than it is here in New Zealand. They don't have public fireworks displays. They all just do private ones. But that involves them all having a beer and going down by the side of the river and releasing their own fireworks. So it's about 100 times bigger than anything you see from the Sky Tower. So that was insane. We also went over to Spain and Switzerland. We sort of took the long way around, going from the UK to Barcelona and stopped by Zurich. We managed to catch Dylan there, who's the guy that keeps popping up in between. And when we spent a weekend in Barcelona, we got to see the Sagrada Familia, a really, really famous building, which is actually in its final stages of construction. It's been in the works for decades. And those final stages are being project managed by a Kiwi as well. So there's lots of Kiwi engineers actually on the other side of the world, more than you'd expect.
We also obviously got to spend a bit of time traveling around the UK. So we spent a couple of weekends in London, which was really great. We got to experience nightlife there, which was a little different to Auckland Bar 101. And we also, one of my favourite things is a bit of a Potterhead. We got to go to the Harry Potter studio tour. Absolutely love that. You've got the nice big castle there. You can see how big it is compared to Harvey. We also went up to Bath, which is a beautiful little city about 2 hours out of London. And on the way, we got to see some really nice rocks at Stonehenge. We also got to go to Oxford, which is quite a unique experience. We knew a couple of people studying there, and just seeing how such an old university, it's like differences, similarities, and how really fancy it was. Yeah, so from this experience, we took away many things. Firstly, the variety of engineering you could do. So as you see from my rotation, we went through a lot of different departments. And I was really amazed about the amount of effort that goes into ensuring quality, manufacturability, making cost downs, and just everything else you have to think about when you're designing a product, not just about if it works. We also learned about how key communication was. Both as ourselves, we were the new person every single week. So we had to get quite good at making friends very quickly. But also how you have to communicate to different departments, especially when you sort of maybe get a little stuck in what you're working on yourselves. We also learned a lot about business and engineering integration. So it was one thing to make these incredible cars, but they also had to sell them. So I have a much greater appreciation for the business aspect of it after going. It was also both Harvey's and I's sort of first real experience in a big professional business. So we learned a lot about professional conduct, just small things like what to you, where to work, attending meetings, writing emails, and all that kind of stuff.
So as well as what we learned from working at Mclaren as a company, obviously because we were overseas, that was a whole nother experience in itself. So the first thing about being overseas that you'll notice if you do go overseas is everyone loves a Kiwi, which is awesome. You've kind of got a weird accent that not a lot of people know. And even if you meet up with some other Kiwis or some Aussies overseas, you know how we hate Aussies here, or love hate. We all just get on really well on the other side of the world. But yeah, so really embrace your Kiwi heritage, I think, when you go overseas. Everyone loves it. And it's really cool to be able to associate yourself with such an awesome country. So I think it's really cool to be proud to be a Kiwi. And working and living in the United Kingdom, that was, how do I explain it? It's like a whirlwind, really. London itself has got 10 million people, which is more than the total number of people in New Zealand. It's just there's so much money there, there's so much opportunity, and there's so many things going on all over the place. Exposure to other cultures. So New Zealand is quite a multicultural country. However, we don't tend to get a lot of sort of Western European cultures over here. So especially when we spent some time in Idiada, being immersed in a culture, or in Germany where we didn't actually speak any German, was a really, I guess, scary experience, because we didn't even know how to ask to get to a certain place. So I think pushing yourself out of your comfort zone in that kind of area as well is really good for personal growth. And the last point, I think, lifestyle and location. It's really easy, I think, when you come from New Zealand, just to think that the rest of the world is quite similar to New Zealand. However, really, lots of other people all over the world live a quite different lifestyle to what we live here. We're super, super privileged in New Zealand. It's a really, really safe and really forgiving environment. Overseas, you really got to mind your bags because you got to watch for the pickpockets. But you know, it's not all bad. There's heaps of opportunity over there, and you'll grow yourself heaps if you do an internship overseas. So if you can manage to get your hands on one, that would be awesome. But if you can't, it's no biggie, because you can go overseas anywhere in the world. I think you can work according to the Washington Accord. With an engineering degree, you really are an international graduate. So if you get a chance to work overseas after you graduate, doing an OE, I would hugely recommend that, as it will grow you in so many different ways that you can't even begin to imagine. Yeah, so I'm going to head overseas for a little bit, but potentially come back to New Zealand, because New Zealand is a cool place to be.
Yeah, so just a little bit about the scholarship if you guys do want to apply. So normally they're advertised on the Part 2 or Part 3 website, or on the scholarship website if you just search Bruce Mclaren Automotive Award. Obviously, with the state of the world right now and it being an international scholarship, I don't know what's happening this year, but just keep an eye on those pages and it will be updated as soon as they know. Sort of the requirements and the things they list on the scholarship is like a GPA of 6, and then interest in automotive industry, was a leadership, communication, and extracurricular activity. So pretty broad. I was no way like a top student when I got this. So yeah, it's definitely anybody can get it. And then, yeah, I just want to say thank you all for listening. Also like to say thank you to Circle and Giltrap who sponsored our scholarship. And then Simon and Jasmine and Mclaren who helped organise it all from their point of view. Paul and Nolita here who organised it from the University of Auckland, and anybody else who has been involved in the scholarship in any form. It's really been a life-changing experience for both Harvey and I, and we'll definitely keep it forever. So thank you for listening, and you can all go get food sometime soon. And Dylan, let you leave if you're still here.